Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Just when I thought I was out.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hello everyone, welcome to the Truth Table, Season 3. I never saw that coming. Season 3. It's going to be a season that goes from now till November. And I'll also have another show running at the same time, Raising Frequencies. But this is Season 3, Episode 1, and my guest today has been a guest on every season. Season 1, Season 2, now Season 3. And the last show we did was also titled Angels and Devils, and we're basically going to be talking about devils for sure. And good and bad, good and evil, the condition of the state of affairs in Canada. And I look forward to our conversation. We're going to delve into, and there's no area that we will shy away from, because we do care about our fellow man, and that's why we do what we do. Jim Torma is my guest, who's also an author, and the website for his books are going to be in the description. He's also a fellow podcaster, philosopher, very active and a high-ranking member of the People's Party since the beginning. And trying to save the world, trying to save the country. I mean, yeah, maybe the world too. And that's what bringing things to the forefront that were hidden, and hidden as occult, into the forefront, so people can look at it, analyze it, come up with their own conclusions. And we're not here to tell you what to think. We're just going to tell you what we think. And he's been a speaker, an advocate. He's a dancer, a traveler, off-grid. And that's his RV is amazing. But he's also a brother, a friend, and a gynecologist. Oh, that's a different show. Sorry. I don't know how that got on there, but I look forward to talking to him right after that. Well, the powers that be are starting to mess with my sound already. Unbelievable. Everything's working perfect all day. And this happens every show where they just start messing with what I hear. And so they know I'm here. I'm glad you're watching too, because, it's just a good way to let you know that we know what you're going on. We know what you're doing. It's not hidden anymore. Now I'm going to quote Honorable W.L. Mackenzie King. He said, talking about Canada, the government of Great Britain has no part in this. They state no department of government of the United Kingdom is concerned in any way with the appointment of the Governor General of Canada. And he said, it will be no shock to most people to learn from the enclosed correspondence that the Department of State for Internal Affairs, of which the Honorable W.L. Mackenzie King is head, affirms that the government of Canada is a self-appointed dictatorship. And I'm going to bring Jim on. Would you agree with that? Is Canada under a dictatorship, my brother?
Well, I definitely think so, Paul. Thank you very much for bringing me on. And I'd like to say hi to everybody out there on our Victoria Day weekend.
Hmm.
And am I lagging? It looks like I'm lagging at my end. Are we good?
Yep. Yep. You're frozen to me, but your voice is fine.
Okay. All right. So I'll continue. I absolutely do believe that we're under a dictatorship, and there's no question about it. And the illusion that we, get to vote for two different parties, or three different parties, or four different parties, really is nothing more than an illusion. Because at the end of the day, all of the parties fall in line with the single agenda that they're all focused on.
So you're running off grid right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Oh yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. Yeah, I saw your setup and I thought, wow, I want to do that. I want to be off grid and just like drive away from the mushroom clouds. I want to be more optimistic, but this is not Raising Frequencies series. This is the Truth Table series, and it means we're not going to be talking about singing bowls today. Oh my goodness! So we did have a question from Donna, and I'll address that with you. The secrecy of Doug Ford's green belt. So if you'd like to answer that question from Donna, thanks
Sh-
for the question, Donna.
Yeah, I would actually. So just a little historical around the Greenbelt and this deal where various developers have purchased land in key areas in the Greenbelt, but alongside urban areas so that they could try to hive off some of the green belt and then marry it to the urban areas so that they could benefit and profit off of these land purchases that they've made. Um, so again, this is something that has been an ongoing issue with the green belt ever since its inception, and even before that, we've been losing farmland. Multiple acres per month of farmland is lost, and it's been lost since the beginning of even the development of Toronto. So Toronto was basically built on farmland. So it is a serious issue, and unfortunately, the deal that Doug Ford had struck to pull some of that land out of the green belt and then put it up for development was actually struck down. He actually reversed it so that once he reversed the issue, it does become a moot point. No matter how much you go ahead and try to sue him, or no matter how much any party tries to go after that particular step, the step has been undone. So at the end of the day, whatever action that they're going to try to take is going to be moot. Yes, they were caught with their hand in the cookie jar, but I could tell you countless numbers of incidents where, even here where I am, off grid, but on the escarpment, I overlook the lower portion, the lower section of the Lake Ontario, which is apparently Lake Huron, going way back when. And there are vineyards, as an example, that have literally clear cut the escarpment to make way for vines. And again, they were clear cutting restricted, protected conservation area.
Hmm.
And what ended up happening, I'll just give you a quick anecdotal story so people understand that this corruption runs super deep. And unfortunately, greed is the driving factor of this
Absolutely.
corruption.
Yep.
And so there was an individual who ended up joining the Conservation Authority, joined the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and a person that owned a vineyard, and then slowly but surely, uh, basically set things up so that when they went ahead to clear cut the escarpment itself for this purpose, what ended up happening was they were successful in clear cutting. They were successful in putting up a massive building, which nobody else would have been able to have constructed or put up, no matter who you were, no matter what kind of farmer you were. This particular individual I'm talking about, and again, I won't name names, but for the sake of wine and profit and ego, especially ego, because a lot of these vineyards are driven by ego, and because they're not really that profitable at the end of the day. That's a known fact. The grape juice business is collapsing in Ontario in a really big way. There's a number of small independent farmers that grow grapes for wine, that we call juice grapes for wine purposes. Basically, their quotas, or not their quotas, but their inputs have been rejected by the vineyards because there's a glut of grapes. Now, these are vineyards that at one time had fruit trees, at one time had my inverter is making a little bit of sound right now. It'll be off in a second. But at any rate, what ended up happening was these guys replaced fruit trees with vineyards, where we could have grown vegetables like tomatoes and peppers, have been replaced by basically grapes. And unfortunately, grapes have proliferated the whole of this area. When I was growing up as a kid, I could go out the door, ride my bike, and go and pick fruit down the street. And then if I got into the car with my dad and drove for 5 minutes, we could go slaughter our pig at the farm and bring it home and then process the meat at home in the basement. Or if we drove about 20 minutes, we could go and go to a beef cattle rancher, and we could basically process the beef on site. So what's happened is there's been a major squeeze, an international squeeze through free trade of our abattoirs, our meat processing. Our farmlands are being gobbled up for profit. And Donna brought this question up about farmers, and it's a double-edged sword, because you can talk to some farmers, and they're really ready to sell their farms. They can't make ends meet, and again, that's because of free trade. We've created a free trade environment where we're importing slave trade picked fruit to sell into our market. So instead of the Bartlett pears, when I was growing up as a kid, we used to go and pick pears, and they were Bartlett pears typically that we would pick. Sometimes they'd be Bosch. And there was another pear that we picked. I forget exactly what it was called. I think it was a Honey Crisp or something like that. But at any rate, as kids, we used to pick these, and now our Bartlett pears that you find in the grocery store are from South Africa. So, and again, the reason being is that in South Africa, they basically enslave the pickers to pick the fruit and then bring them in here so that the grocery stores, the canning companies, and the processors can make a ton of fortune, a huge fortune for their shareholders. Unfortunately, corporatocracy has destroyed farming,
Everything.
and yeah,
Food.
absolutely, yeah,
All
yeah,
food.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
disgusting, really.
Yeah, and that's why free trade is a fallacy. I remember growing up as a kid, and there was these big, agreements and NAFTA and that type of stuff was happening.
Mm.
And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, they said that we'd get more jobs with free trade. How come, General Motors is cutting back? How come, Chrysler's cutting back? How come we're losing our canning factories? How come we're losing our pickling plants? And my dad turned to me and he said, "Well, free trade isn't really free. What it does is it's free for the corporations to run roughshod over the world to make
Yeah.
maximum profit while they destroy our livelihoods, while they destroy our communities, and while they destroy our lifestyles." As a kid growing up,
Yeah.
you could go to a farm and pick fruit, and that would pay for part of your tuition. That would put stuff on your back. You'd make. I mean, when I picked tobacco, I made more money than my counterparts who were, delivering newspapers during summertime. So there was good money to be made, but all of that was basically destroyed by free trade.
Hmm.
So free trade is not what it's cracked up to be. But going back to Donna's question about farming and farmland, again, it's sad because a lot of farmers that are caught between a rock and a hard place, some of these farmers are getting older, their kids don't want to do farming. So what ends up
Yeah.
happening is they want to sell their farms, but they're getting agricultural prices instead of the residential build prices for their farmland. And that's where they could, basically make enough money to retire on, and quite a bit of money, as a matter of fact. So again, there are farmers that want to sell their properties, but not to, not to extend the farming industry or farming in general, but to sell or to sell out. Now there are new farms that are coming up and becoming sort of like a micro niche area where there are grass fed beef. You've got
Hmm. Yep.
swine farms as well, where there is a big difference in the way that they look at food and the way that they raise their livestock. A lot of them raise heritage crop, or pardon me, heritage cattle, heritage swine. A lot of people are raising heritage chickens, free range chickens. So that is coming back. But unfortunately, when you go to slaughter the meat, you've got about four processing plants or maybe less in Ontario. There are some smaller abattoirs that are starting to show up, but at the end of the day, there's no way to get back to the way it used to be, where there was on farm slaughtering. And on farm slaughtering didn't get stopped because there was,
A
um, you know,
problem.
a problem on the farms. It got
Yeah.
stopped because the mass producers of sausage and meat poisoned the meat because they had bad practices, because the high volume they were processing was just way too much to handle, and
Yeah.
they weren't clean. So
Yep.
what ended up happening, people got sick, and then regulations killed that
Yep.
whole process. So again, regulations are also a huge problem, and another reason why farms can't survive. And I'd love to see the days when you could go out to the chicken farm and you could basically grab chickens and then bring them home and slaughter them at home without having the CFIA come and throw you
Yeah.
in jail.
Yeah.
And this is the problem: is that the regulations have gone way overboard. When you look at 14 million chickens were slaughtered in, I believe, in Canada over this last season, because of suspected bird flu.
Yep.
Now, you can eat a chicken that has a flu and never catch flu from it. That's a fact. So, what they're doing really is they're manipulating the price of meat, and they're doing it by getting rid of the supply. So, it
Yep.
keeps the price high. And then we have the quotas. So, we have chicken quotas, we have egg
Milk.
quotas, milk quotas. So these are cartels. I call them
Yep.
cartels. They're like the dairy cartel. These are the
Hmm.
criminals that exist in our country that basically control our government. And our government is nothing but a facade for big money and the banking system. That's why I basically call our government the puppets and the stooges for the British Empire and the City of London. And when I say the British Empire and the City of London, I'm talking about that, the so called, people call it the hidden hand. It's the money changers. That's
Yep.
who it is, at the end of the day. And we know what Jesus felt about the money changers. So I go back to Donna's question again about, Doug Ford. Well, Doug Ford was being an opportunist. He is another one of these puppets that is controlled by big money. Just take a look at his background. He spent most of his life, his business life, in Chicago, where the Muslim Brotherhood run everything and the mob run everything,
Yep.
and that's what he's used to. And those are the ties that I believe that he has at the end of the day. That
Hmm.
same Muslim Brotherhood that is entrenched into the Conservative Party of Canada in various ways. Again, this is my opinion. as to how I see things, and the very and those very people work for that empire and the city of London. Look at what Harper did. Look at what Rooney did.
Yeah,
You know, we're talking about Carney like he's a really bad guy, which he is. Okay,
it it explains the Islamophobia laws, just like
yeah,
anti-Semitism laws. It's like
yeah.
they're it's a mafia. That's but I mean, do you think we have good people that because I think this the whole system needs to be reset. And I know we have good people, good smart people that do you think we have the people to restore what was like you, like me?
Well, okay. So to answer that question, I would say they're currently in the government. The people that are sitting in government. I know people might get upset with what I'm going to say right now. You see a crime that's going on, and you see, like as an example, if I saw a woman getting raped, actually intervene.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so how I liken it is that there's a rape going on. It's the rape of Canada,
yep,
and these guys are turning a blind eye to it.
yep.
So I have no respect. I have to say this. I have no respect for any sitting MP or MPP because they're actually allowing for the rape of Canada to go unabated with no question whatsoever.
But we have the deputy minister, Lanceman, the LGBT radical there, spokesman, promoting the liberal mayor in Vaughan, like openly promoting a liberal. So there's no, the lines have been so blurred. There's no line anymore. We have
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah, there never was a line. It was all an illusion
Yep,
to create, to separate the people.
yep.
Um, and I'm going to come back to Donna's question, but right now this is really important. I put up a clip. God rest his soul, of Mark
Reason.
Friesen,
Yeah.
talking about how there is no left and right. There's good and evil,
Hmm.
and that's why I really gravitated to him more for what he was saying than anything else, and so. He and I saw eye to eye when it came to the fact that there is no left and right. There is no conservative or liberal. I really don't like it when people talk about how they're real conservatives or true conservatives. At the end of the day, you're either good or you're evil. And if you're good, you're going to care about this country, and you're not going to put a label like conservative or liberal on your back and paint a stripe on yourself. You're actually going to be either good or evil. And that's how I see it. And that's why I get really upset. Because, as an example, I'll just give you a very small example. During the 21 election, the People's Party of Canada got huge numbers. And one of the smallest numbers they got was the conservative vote. Okay. The
Hmm.
largest number they got was the non voter, which was 43% of their take. 17% were conservatives. So I don't believe that we should be calling ourselves conservative or liberal or any of that anymore. I think we
No.
should be calling ourselves either patriots and populists that
Yeah.
believe in taking care of our country,
Yeah.
taking care of our environment, bringing back the old ways where we respected the land and we lived off the land and we
Yep.
shared our bounty, and we could go to the farm and slaughter our cattle, slaughter our pigs. I was on my first slaughter when I was 8 years old, and it was to a pig farm, and I learned everything from front to back.
Hmm.
After we took out the pig, we bled it, we put hay around it, we burned all of its fur off of it while it was still in the field. Then we took it, we cut it, we cleaned it, we made sausage, we made steaks. We made all kinds of things out of it. And we did it as a family in the basement together,
Hmm.
and we respected the animal from nose to tail. So it wasn't like we were, not eating everything. We ate everything from hooves to nose to tail. Everything was eaten. Head cheese was, that's why it's called that. We made that. We made that from scratch. So I'm of a, I just see that there's so much greed, and greed is what has taken everything over. That's why.
Yes,
Doug Ford had the gall and the nerve to take green uh,
Greenbelt land.
the greenbelt land and then place it in to be developed. But he's not the only one. There's farmers that are willing to do that as well. So, and it's about
Yep,
greed.
yep,
So to answer Donna's question, it's very complex to answer that question because there's some farmers that want to maintain altitude, but they can't because they're being crushed by regulations.
you're
So the
right.
system is rigged against us living off the land. So when they talk about green, that's all bullshit. That the greenwashing is pure bullshit. If we were really greenwashing, we would be able to raise backyard chickens without having CFIA come in like terrorists and then call animals. And they're calling the animals so that we are held hostage to a
Mm,
system. And that's the reality of what we're faced with. The CFIA called 14 million chickens that, as far as I'm concerned, were perfectly healthy to eat. Okay, and they could have been eaten, but instead they were culled to keep prices high and to keep supply low, to be able to basically rip off the Canadian consumer in every way, shape, or form that they possibly can. That's why a
Is it,
chicken is $25 now and not
yeah.
$12.
Is it also a depopulation plan, do you think?
Of course
To
it is. Yeah,
yeah,
of course it
that's what
is.
I
Yeah,
would think.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
our I don't even think Carney won the election, honestly. But that's my opinion. Um, I know that the migration that's happening, the mass migration, they're getting a lot of money, a lot more than Canadians actually get, and they are going to vote Liberal because they're the ones feeding them and giving them their high numbers and lots of dollars. But the ideologies from these countries, we have to understand, and it's not Islamophobic, but a studying of their ideology is they have young brides that they could say are their daughters, so they could legitimately continue their culture in Canada under a veil, and they're protected by the government of Canada. But my concern, and I wanted to share this clip with you on Mark Carney's company, Brookfield.
Mark Carney ran a business called Brookfield, a corporation, a very large corporation. And over the last 5 years, he led that corporation. And his company, Brookfield, has been accused of breaching Indigenous rights in 4 countries. Take it from the CBC, Mississauga First Nation in Canada, for Indigenous peoples in Maine in the US, in Colombia and Brazil. And many of those fights have been over hydroelectric dams that Mark Carney's company owns on their territory. And in Mississauga First Nations fight, they took Mark Carney's company to court, Brookfield. And do you know what his company argued in court? That they do not have the duty to consult. In 2023, Mark Carney's company argued in Ontario court that they do not have the duty to consult Mississauga First Nation. I spoke to the chief. That's where he said they cut us off at the knees. Mark Carney ran a business.
And that's that, isn't it? That's the guy.
Yeah, yeah, that's the guy, and so I'll give you my take on the First Nations and the Indigenous. I'll start with a story of my going to the Six Nations, and I was literally working with some of the people that were in the Six Nations, and they were not. They wanted to vote, so they wanted to vote for a party. And at the time, I was backing very, very heavily the PPC. So I went right on to the reserve. I was told, "Hey, white boy, you shouldn't be going on to the reserve." But in my naivete, I went ahead and went on the reserve, and I went for a little bit of a ride. and or drive. And I was there with another. I won't give her name out. I also met with the 1492 crowd. Again, I won't talk about who I met with as far as that was concerned. But what I came to understand is the chiefs are the representatives that are handpicked, in my opinion, by the government. So the chiefs are the stooges for the government, and they're the ones that are the people that control and benefit from all the money that is made and taken from the Canadian taxpayer to foot the bill of the reconciliation. So at the end of the day, what I've come to learn, the hard way, was when I went through the Six Nations Reserve. I was right at the chief's house watching a bunch of guys planting trees down a driveway that had already been cobblestoned, freshly cobblestoned, and they were laying what looked to me would have been about 200 trees lining the driveway to the mansion, the chief's mansion. And then all you had to do was just turn your head to like about 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and there was three houses together. There was about 40 cars outside of the house, and what I saw was blue tarp on top of roofs that were caving in, but there were literally people that were living in those houses, and I found out that they were couch surfing. So the indigenous or the native Indians couch surf. They couch surf on res. They have absolutely like the worst conditions possible. They live like homeless people. But the chiefs are multi gazillionaires. They live like millionaires, and they control the money. And the band councils have an iron grip on the funds and money that come in to these particular reserves. So what I see is that the First Nations are another extension of the government. It's a way to get Canadians to be upset. Some of the Canadians are going to be upset because we're infringing on First Nations rights,
Yeah. Yeah.
and vice versa. So this again is about division. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for First Nations.
Yeah.
I went onto their reserve to find out what their plight was, and it turned out that their leaders are corrupt. So again, we're back to greed and corruption again. So this is where we're gonna have the reckoning is coming, and it's because of greed and corruption. But as far as Brookfield is concerned, and Mark Carney and what they're doing, they're not the only ones doing it. Okay, like there are a lot of organizations that are infringing on their rights. Now the Mississaugas did win. What did they win? They didn't get their land back. What they got was they got money, and they got a payout. And then the chief decided that they're going to disperse the money through interest. So whatever interest comes in, the 2,100 registered Mississauga Indians are going to get a stipend every year from the interest. But now remember, the chief is the one that held that money and is going to hold that money, and he was going to give out and dole it out in small chunks to the recipients. Now, so again, and who is the family? Who is the chief's family? Who's going to end up with those millions of $180 million? Who's going to actually end up with that money? And it's not just $180 million; it's billions of dollars of reconciliation money that taxpayers have given to the indigenous, which then gets funneled back into projects that they're doing. So there are First Nations groups that have approved LNG and all kinds of different things, but that money, the money that's coming in, also gets funneled back out again, and again, it's back to greed. So
Yep.
we're faced with a serious amount of greed at the end of the day. Um,
Like an
yeah,
epidemic.
it is. It is. And
Yep.
it's greed. The greed is the root of our problem. I'll just go
Yeah.
to here's another simple thing. And again, I feel terrible for anybody and everybody that took a shot. Over the COVID period, because they've harmed
Yeah.
themselves. People didn't want to
Yep.
take the shot, but at the end of the day, why did many people take the shot? Because of money, because of a paycheck. But now
People are sad.
Imagine
Yep.
if the 80% of our population that took the shot said no. What would the government would have collapsed. The medical industry would have collapsed. All of it would have collapsed right there on its spot. But instead of people standing up for principle, what they did was they stood up for their paycheck, and they risked their lives for a paycheck. And again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just
No,
making
no,
a
no, no.
point that people
Yep.
did that because of a paycheck. They did it for money, and money is worthless without your life. If you don't have
Yep.
your life, what
And
good is money? you know
and Canadians have been conditioned over time. Trust the science. Trust the doctor. The white coats. I mean, it's all conditioning. The media has not been our friend.
no
They're also very complicit. Um, yeah, I think most of them should go to jail. I mean, I'm pretty sure Trump's, with the Epstein files, he says, all my friends will be going to jail. I mean, he said that, I can't do it. A lot of these people are my friends because he's a part of a club, a rich man's club, whether he did bad things or not. He knows darn well they did bad things. And
well,
but Canada, we've got
yeah.
Carney, and he's one of the bad. He's like the banking cartel spokesman. Greed. He's a pinnacle of greed in our face, where he wants to hide everything he's doing now, but he wants to see everything we're doing. It's like the opposite of what should be happening. We should see what they're doing. We want to look at their emails. If they're conspiring against us, we should know this so we can fire them. But we have absolutely no power to fire anybody.
No,
So it's
no,
it's it's a sad, scary
no.
situation, and they're still using the conditioning on, all the brainwashed people. They're still continuously being conditioned. Oh, we made a mistake. We meant all good with this needle. Um, Sorry, I went on a rant there. I forgot what we were talking about, but
Well, listen, I want to tell you something. I ran into an older man in Sobeys the other day, and I was at the cash register, standing next to him, and he kind of blurted out that he made it through the last for a few years, and I said, "What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Well, I was in the hospital when COVID hit." And I was in the hospital for 2.5 months. And this guy was an old guy. He was probably in his early 80s, walking with a cane. He looked pretty. He was hobbling pretty good. And he said, "See," and then I looked at him. I said, "So what happened?" And he goes, "Well, I was in the hospital, and they wanted me to take the jab." And he goes, "And I didn't take the jab, so I'm here, and I'm going to be standing here, and I'm going to be paying for my own groceries. I'm going to buy my own groceries. I'm going to live on my own as long as I can. But I didn't take the shot, and all my friends that took the shot are dead." And like this just blurted out of him, standing at the cash register. I said, "Well, you know what? You're this one of the smartest men alive, because at the end of the day, the people that didn't take the shot are the ones that did survive, and they have the strongest chance of surviving what's going to come in the future." And everybody in the grocery store froze. But here was this old man talking about how all of his friends that took the shot are dead. Okay. And he said,
yeah,
"Thank God I didn't listen to the news. Thank God I didn't listen to the pressure of the doctors in the hospital." He goes, "But something inside of me said I shouldn't be doing this." So, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because we all have our really good angel inside of ourselves, sitting there riding
yeah,
shotgun on our shoulder. And more often than not, we should be listening to our intuition, and we should be listening to our internal gut more than anything that we get from the outside, because the outside is all manufactured and all manipulated. Our media.
yep,
Our media is completely gaslighting people still about COVID, the shots, and all the rest of it. Now, I will give Trump
yep,
this: in the United States, a number of states have actually passed laws and have stated that the COVID shots are bioweapons, and that they actually killed people. So that, to me, when
yep,
you see a country, and here's Trump, he's the president, and in that country where he's the president, that is coming to the forefront, to light. Not
Yep.
once not once during the COVID did Trump say to take the shot. You had to take the shot. He said it was a choice that you had. You always had a choice to take the shot. He talked about UV light. He talked about hydroxychloroquine. He talked about all of
Yeah.
those things before the shots even came to be. So he was already messaging and telegraphing. But when you're surrounded by vipers, okay, and
Mhm.
our country is all vipers in government. At least
Yep.
there
Yep.
there was a few people that weren't vipers, and now it seems with Tulsi Gabbard and JFK Jr., we're seeing cracks in the system that are revealing themselves, and to me, it gives me hope. Now, of course, a lot of people will come and jump all over me and say that I'm supporting. No, I'm actually watching and seeing what's really happening. Here's the United
Yep.
States pushing back and basically pushing back at all of this shit, and it's starting to break the system. Fauci's coming closer and closer, but at least we've got him as the bad guy and the villain out in the open, out in the public. In our
Yeah.
world, Teresa Tam is nowhere to be found, and nobody's talking about it. In our world, our politicians that push the shots are basically mum on all of this. Our media is mum
Yeah.
on what's going on in the United States. And in the United States, the truth is being revealed. So I look at it like that's a win. That's a win for truth. That's a win for people that care about other people, because I wouldn't be doing this if
Yep.
I didn't care about other people. I'm not doing this for clicks
100%.
and views. I don't get paid
Nope.
to do any of this stuff. I do it because
Yep.
I care. I saw the people at the convoy. I saw the horror and the terror of people that were on the street, young girls, young men, young women that saw their lives collapsing in front of them, came together because they knew that something dark was happening. And when I was there in Ottawa, I saw this darkness. Now, that darkness consumed the convoy leadership. It consumed all the players. Everybody's consumed about making money. Again, the consumption. But what I'm talking about is the real people, the real truckers. I'm not talking about the stuff that everybody's cheering and following their heroes. I've never had heroes. So I don't subscribe to the hero mentality. You know, I
Nope.
don't. I think that's just a bullshit fallacy. At the end of the day, the closest,
But you
you know,
see,
the
this is why we're always going to be friends because we're not. Neither one of us are here for clicks or not. Neither
yeah,
one of us.
exactly.
We are both here because we
Yeah,
care.
yeah. We care about
And
people,
yeah,
And when I saw the pain people
yeah,
were going through, I cried with people on the street. I hugged people on the street. People that didn't want a mask, they just wanted a hug. They wanted to be loved. I hugged people because that's what we should be doing as a human race. We should be hugging each other.
yeah.
But instead, what we're doing is we're
Yep.
dividing one another. Like when you look at, and I want to
Yep.
talk about this too, the podcasters that are online right now. A bunch of them are paid shills for the Conservative Party. A bunch of them are paid shills for the Liberal Party, and then there's a bunch that are striving to be popular, and they're really, what they're doing is they're just creating more and more and more division. I have yet to hear, outside of yourself, I have yet to hear any of these podcasters talking about bringing people together from all sides. I've been out in the real world. I've met liberals. I've met NDP. And that's what I wanted to say about the PPC. In 21, the NDP that voted for the PPC, the liberals that voted for the PPC, the conservatives, the non-voters, the Green Party, those were patriots. And that's what we have to find. We have to find patriots that are going to come together so that we can show Canada how we
Hmm.
can unify and beat the beast. We're not going to beat the beast if we're not unified. They want us divided. And that's what I don't like about our podcast community, is that they're dividing. Everything is about,
Yeah.
go into this box, follow this box. Why aren't we coming together
Yeah.
and fighting this tyranny together as one big,
Hmm.
big entity? So what do we have differences? That's the beauty. We have differences. That's the glorious thing about us, but there is a common thing.
Yep.
Goodness is common. Okay. So let's start there. What
Hmm.
do you want that's good for humanity? You want clean food? Okay, I can sign up to clean food. So can everybody else in this country sign up to clean food. So there's a common denominator. So let's start with that stuff first. Let's start with what we can build on, and not what our differences are. This is the problem with what's happening
Mm,
in the podcast community. It's highlighting our fucking differences instead of highlighting our fucking uniqueness and how we are thinking about things that are similar to one another. That's what we should be doing. I know liberals love their kids. I know conservatives that love their kids. I know NDP that love their kids, and all of them don't want their kids to be chopped up. But yet online you'd think that if you're a liberal, you're going to transition your child. That's bullshit. That's the biggest pile of bullshit I've ever heard, and I'm sick and tired of
yep.
hearing that online. That's not true. That is a lie. Okay, what's online is the extremes. So what I'm asking
Yep.
people to do is look at what's online as being the absolute extremists. Okay, so let's go into the middle ground of where we can agree. We want clean food. We don't want our kids to be chopped up. We want our kids to learn facts.
Mhm.
We don't want kids to understand that climate change or the climate hoax is to destroy humanity. We want, look, I don't pollute. I've never polluted. I know many farmers that don't pollute and they've never polluted. So what are we talking about? We're talking about polluters. Who are the polluters? Let's go after the polluters. But the problem is that we are made to be the polluters and we're not the polluters. Okay, at the end of the day.
Yep.
So here again, podcasters, yeah, yeah.
Psychological.
Podcasters are part of the breakdown of our society because they're
Yeah.
creating division. We shouldn't be creating division.
Yep.
They're-
And for clicks and
yeah,
popularity. Oh, I got a great story. Let's push it through and make it 10 times bigger and
yeah.
sensationalize it. Yeah, that's the last thing we need right now.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, when I was told to mask up, I got the darkest feeling around. So what did I do?
Yeah,
I
me
told
too.
people, listen, this is not scientific. What you're being fed here about masking is not scientific, and if the science disproves it, and it was and I kept pushing it, and a lot of us pushed it to the point where the CDC took the information off of the CDC website and then rewrote it. Okay, OSHA took all of the masking information that we had been studying as people that were looking to get their spray license. They took it off of the website and masked and hid it from the public, so the public couldn't use it as a reference, so the public couldn't see how this was all bullshit. And when I see people out on the street right now with a blue mask on, and they're cutting their grass or whatever with a blue mask on, those are people with serious mental health issues that were harmed by the government, and they were harmed by the government to
Mm,
create fear in them. And this is what we're doing. This division and everything
yep.
is creating mass fear, and we shouldn't be in a place of fear. We should be coming together
Yep.
and loving one another as human beings, and respecting one another,
Yep.
and respecting our environment. I've never polluted.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Because that will empower communities, unity, unification, showing that you're not alone. It's okay. It's going to be okay. You have a purpose. God doesn't make junk.
Yeah, and that's the thing. God made the most incredible thing called the human being, and the problem is that
Hmm.
medicine, the way that after the 1910 Flexner report and the Rockefeller
Hmm.
Foundation, what they did was they made the
Right.
body a broken down engine that had to be fixed all the time. That's how you make money off of it, because you're
Hmm.
tinkering with it all the time. Well, we don't need that. Okay, ask me if I've ever had a family doctor? Yeah, when I was a kid. I have never had a family doctor since I was a kid. I've never needed a family
Hmm.
doctor since I was a kid. Yeah, I came close to dying. Why? Because I was harmed by a dentist to the point where I had to go in because I had such an infection in my face that it was going to kill me, and I was in a life and death situation in Toronto, and I got operated on. That's why I got these three incisions in my neck, because I was almost at the point of sepsis, and that was a dentist, a doctor that fucked me up with a prescription and didn't give me the right prescription. And so that's what doctors do. Doctors are tinkering with God's greatest gift. which is human beings placed on this earth. And we are an incredible machine that doesn't need to be fucked with. We just need to feed ourselves properly. We don't need to toxify ourselves. And we certainly don't need doctors to be prodding and poking us for no reason. Okay. And that's the reality.
No, because they're looking for problems. They're addressing symptoms, not and that they have no training in natural
No.
remedies, medicines that are actually beneficial. They want customers for and I don't think they go into the business thinking that way. I think they're just okay. You have this lump, you have this rat, it goes with this treatment. So they're just brainwashed themselves, and they
Yeah.
live
And I
in the
mean, it's,
self
yeah.
entitlement. They're
Yeah. I mean,
boosted
if
up
you
like
take a look at,
politicians.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They're like gods, at the end of the day. But if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, what are they? So their pharmaceutical industry is based on patents. What are they patenting?
Yep.
They're patenting natural remedies that can cure you, but instead
Free.
of allowing
Yeah.
for free, like dandelion root will cure you for free.
Yep.
But because it's not patented, what they do is they'll take it and they'll mimic. They'll create a synthetic version of
Hmm.
something that is actually healing and is God given to us. All right, and then they sell it to you back to you for a high value or a high dollar amount, pretending that it's going to cure you. When reality is you can go out in your backyard, and if you're not the type of person that sprays chemicals on the ground to kill dandelion root, which cures cancer, if you're not an idiot like that, then you're going to grow your dandelions in your backyard and you're going to eat the leaves to give you intestinal health like they do in Italy and Europe and other countries. And then you'd eat the root if you've got cancer. And the reason why you have cancer is because you're poisoning yourself with whatever else you're eating, doing, or thinking. Thinking, mind has a lot to do with how our health is. So if you're in constant depression, your body's going to break down. And
Hmm.
this is what the podcasters are creating an environment of depression. This doom and gloom. We don't have to. I don't look at our world as being doom and gloom. Yeah, there's very nasty
No.
people that are trying to take us over, and if we think correctly and if we unify together as a people, as patriots, as people who care about other people, we can beat that beast. Okay,
Yeah,
that beast
we need
is
to
a
like
small number.
legislate against greed. I mean, it's one of the seven deadly sins is greed, covetousness. It's right there in our face. Pride is another one. Why do we have Pride Month? It's one of the seven deadly sins. I mean, why would we ever embrace even the word? Why would we use confidence, self-confidence, instead of the actual word? I mean,
Yeah,
it's right in our face. The evil, angels and demons. So this is what we're talking about: angels and devils. And the devil's right in our face, brother. And it's like, why can't we stop this? We can see it right with clearly and right in front of our face. It's everywhere. The medicines have been, uh, you know, taken over by greed. The food has been taken over by greed, and we can do everything better. Education. Uh, um, I remember when I was a child, and there was a cherry tree on the street, like between the sidewalk and the street. There was a beautiful cherry tree. I went up there and I started eating cherries. Nobody said anything. And I swear I must have ate the whole intersection and they were big, dark red, like ready to be eaten. And they were pure and there was no spray or chemicals on them. I mean, I didn't get sick and I ate way too many. And this is the community I want back. This is who we are as people without greed. Nobody has to go hungry. The whole design of humanity and food was meant to be abundant. It's built to be abundant. That's why there's like a whole bunch of seeds in every apple. All those seeds are another tree.
yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
need
Yep.
for it's by design to be abundant. And greed
Well,
has ruined everything. And I wish we
yeah.
could just legislate against greed. Just end it. No more.
When I
Bring
was a
back
kid, yeah,
herbal.
Yeah, when I was a kid, yeah, I could go for a bike ride, on my 21 speed, and I would ride from Welland through Fawn Hill, down Effingham, down into St. Catharines, over to Niagara on the Lake. That was like a big, massive, early morning leave and then come back later. And I'd be riding past orchard after orchard after orchard. I would
Mm,
see vegetables growing, and on farms where they had mix of different vegetables growing. Garlic was growing, tomatoes were growing. Now what you see vineyards everywhere. Okay, and it's
yeah,
because they're being subsidized. Okay, so the food was replaced with liquor. Okay, it
yep,
was replaced with wine, and these vineyards are failing. They're not making money. These people are not making money. I don't understand how people don't. We've destroyed our farmland by taking and making wine, okay, instead of growing crops. We're making wine instead of raising livestock. We're making wine instead of growing Bartlett pears, which are, you can't even find a Bartlett pear farm really anywhere around here anymore these days. Everything is peaches, and they've narrowed it all down to peaches and apples, but we used to have all kinds of fruit that used to grow, multiple different types of plums and apricots, and like growing up as a
yeah,
kid, it was a myriad of fruit that you could grow from one
yep,
farm to the next, and you'd see it everywhere, and
yep,
you'd be able to grab and get chicken at the farm, turkey right at the farm, slaughtered at the farm. It doesn't happen anymore because greed and control and power have consolidated our slaughterhouses to a few. The
hmm,
CFIA has turned into terrorists that are controlling our food supply because, again, they want to make sure that our food supply is destroyed as much as it possibly can.
yep,
14 million chickens could have fed the world, okay? But instead, we killed them
hmm,
because of bird flu, okay? That has nothing to do with health when you cook the meat, okay?
right.
I'm sorry, but that's the truth, okay? Bird flu's got shit to do with anything.
Well,
And
this
and it,
is the truth table.
yeah. And that's the reality. That is the reality that we're faced with. So when Donna asks about Doug Ford, well, Doug Ford is a slimy opportunist, greedy money
100%.
bag boy.
Yep.
That boy's took his brother's image and cloaked himself in it. But
Yep.
he was the pinko. His brother Rob
Nailed
called
it.
Doug Ford a commie pinko. That's why he's in bed with Carney. At the end of the day, that's what
Yep.
these people are. These people are opportunists that take advantage of the land. They take advantage of the circumstance and of the situation. And unfortunately, a lot of farmers that can't make ends meet because they got crushed in the system, who want to retire, and their children don't want to be working in a destitute situation because the way that everything was destroyed for profit, for the
Hmm.
greedy, for the shareholder who does nothing but hold shares to make money off of the dividends that they get. That is what the people are paying for. And we're paying our lives for the shareholder, for the corporatocracy.
Yep.
That is what's wrong with our world. It's greed. At the end of the day, you go back to greed. If greed was not entering the equation when we were asked to shoot up, okay, then most people wouldn't have shot up. Most people would have said, "Fuck you, I'm not going to take a shot."
Yep.
The beauty is people are starting to wake up. I was on the beach last year. I watched this whole gaggle of kids with their parents and stuff. They're going, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're homeschooling our children. We're showing them how to canoe. We're showing them how to kayak. We're showing them the different types of trees that are, on the shoreline. We're
Excellent.
explaining to them, and so that is something that we're coming back to. I grew up that way. I remember coming home
Mm.
from school, from public school, and then getting my extended training from my dad. And my dad would say, "Well, that bit of history is bullshit, son. That bit of history is bullshit. That's not true. That's not true. But here's the truth. Oh, and what you can count on, Jim, you can count on a politician being a liar. You can count on media completely propagandizing everything and lying
Yep.
through the skin of their teeth because they're getting paid in the background. Okay, in one form or another, they're getting paid. Whether it's directly or indirectly, it doesn't matter because they are towing the line of what the government wants to feed you.
Yep.
And that's exact. And my dad was right from the very get go. So what my dad, and again, I didn't look at my dad as a hero, also, although I could have because of the things that he did. But I looked at him as my sage advisor and somebody that was sort of like the one that brought me back to reality about media, brought me back to reality about school and what school was all about. And I remember the teachers that were taking out the young girls and dating them, that were probably underage, but those things happened, and that still happens. The pedophilia
Oh
is
yeah.
still ongoing, and nobody's doing anything about it,
Well,
at the end of
it's
the
a
day.
cultural they're accepted
Absolutely.
in Islamic State countries, which is
Yeah.
why we can't be Islamophobic. Islamophobia is a fear of Islam, and when you understand Islam in an Islamic state, you have three choices as a Christian. You either convert, or you pay a jizya tax. So it's extortion if you want to be a Christian. And then the third choice is death. So I think there's a legitimate reason to have a fear of that situation being flooded into this country because
Well,
I don't have disrespect for them. I don't have disrespect. I have love for all humanity, no matter who they what their religious ideology. But it doesn't mean I accept that culture because I don't agree with that culture. There's no hate in that statement, but there is a moral depravity in my mind that a child isn't brain isn't ready for a relationship or marriage until they're at least 25 years old, when their brain is finished developing. The last part of the brain is right here in the front, where that makes all the most important decisions for us. So, and they don't ask these children to get married, they're forced to get married. The parents sell them like
yeah.
cattle. It's not, they have no like love for their children as we do. We love our children, we want them to be happy, we want them to be successful. I mean, this is who we are as Canadians, but this is not what they are like. They don't have that bond. They were willing to sell their kids and force them into marriages 6 years old, and there's no compatibility there. Let them do what they want there. They also don't pray in the streets like they demonstrated in Toronto. They don't do that in their own country. This is not a cultural thing. This is a domination thing. This is a statement of, this is our country now. They're being flooded into districts where they have the majority vote, and then boom, we see another a Sikh in a parliament building, and this is a slow coup.
Well, it's also a societal thing. So pedophilia, and porn and all that. I mean, Canada is known, for their porn fetishes and their pedophilia, in a
Hmm.
big way around the world. I mean, Canadians, Germans, and UK are the top consumers of online pedophilic porn. That is a fact. Okay, and some of the biggest servers of porn are right in Toronto. Okay, it's in the Liberty Village area. Liberty, imagine that, eh? And this is going back. This is going back to the year 1999, 2000. When we were there, and I don't know if you guys ever heard of the time when Microsoft was doing their thing. Microsoft's system was their backbone was on running through the Liberty Village area, and then all of a sudden you saw porn coming into the schools and all the rest of it. That's because the same servers that were serving up Microsoft backbone was also serving up the world's second largest porn service across the world itself. So this has been going on for a very long time. But I will state that the multiculturalism Ministry of Multiculturalism has created the environment for different cultures to come here and to isolate themselves and to be on an island. And then what they do is they separate themselves from the rest of Canadian society, so they don't integrate. Like
Yeah,
In the United States, you come and you become an American, so you're an American Italian. In Canada, you're an Italian Canadian. Okay, so that a very big distinction there. You're an American Italian, or in Canada, you're an Italian Canadian. And that's because it's your home country first, and in Canada is the way station. Canada is the
yeah,
place that you feed off of.
yeah.
That's why money sending services like Western Union are so massive. Like when we have migrant workers come here and they don't spend their money here. That's bullshit. They send all their money back to their home country. So these people come here because the slave traders, we have modern day slavery. It's in agriculture, okay? It's in
Yeah.
Tim Hortons. It's in the banking system. It's in the insurance industry. And I don't care what anybody, you can go ahead and accuse me of whatever you want. The reality is that our country is definitely on board with slavery and has been for a very long time, and
Yep.
it creeped through agriculture. There's no
Mhm.
reason why the agricultural industry could not be hiring students, but instead they're hiring migrant workers. Why? Because they can abuse them, they can underpay them, and then when they give them room and board, okay, when they house them in these garbage environments, treat them like garbage, they hardly get hot water for their showers. They are paying for that, so it comes out of
Yep.
their wages. So not only does a slaver give these people slave wages, but then they claw back money from them to charge them room and board at their farms where they've got and they pretend that they're nice people. But the Dutch and the English have been involved in slavery for the longest time. And when they said that they were going to abolish slavery, that was just a cover. That was a cover for modern day slavery. We have modern day slavery today, and that's why our wages are low. That's why we don't have a good standard of living, because we are pitted against slaves from around the world, and the slaves are brought here to be slaved here in this country. As a kid growing up,
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, I earned good money picking fruit. Okay. That's where we earned our money as a kid growing up. When I was 12 and 13, and people are going to say, well, that's child abuse. No, we worked on the farms at 12 and 13 and 14, picking fruit, and we worked as hard or as little as we wanted, but we actually got, that work ethic early in life, and we enjoyed what we were doing. We weren't slave traded. We now have modern day slavery happening in front of our noses, and people accept it. Farmers make the excuse, wineries make the excuse, and I hear the bullshit excuse from all of these wine guys and
Yep.
all of these farmers that, oh, we couldn't make ends meet if we didn't have these migrant workers. That's bullshit. And again, it's about greed. I go back to the
Yeah.
same common denominator. It's about greed. The minute we
And
wipe out greed, the minute our standard of living rises, the minute
yep.
we as a people become a unified, strong
Hmm.
nation, when greed is not the driving force in what we do. And that's the
Yep. And
unfortunate part.
another deadly sin, gluttony, which
Yeah.
usually understood to include drunkenness. So that we got all these, grape farms, and the government is overtaxing the alcohol. So they're profiteering again with the government needing more money when they really don't need any taxes, and they certainly shouldn't be growing. Because when they create jobs, they're creating bureaucracy and more power for themselves. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and
and very.
these grape growers are all subsidized, okay?
Hmm.
They're all subsidized by the government, okay?
Yep.
When they have a crop failure or they claim they have a crop failure, they get money from the government. Where does that money come from? It comes from the taxpayer. So the
Hmm.
taxpayer is not only they're feeding the egos of these wineries, okay? They're all ego-filled individuals. You just take a look. I won't even name names. Just go to some of these some of these wineries, and you'll see how these people are complete ego freaks, okay,
Hmm.
and the industry feeds them, and then and that's what they're doing, they're feeding themselves, and at the end of
Hmm.
the day it's a racket, it's a pure racket. And what's
Hmm.
happening is farmland is being wiped out for grapes, all right, and now the small independent farmer that was growing grapes can't sell his grapes because the winery won't give him any money for it, okay,
Yep.
because there's a glut of it. There's a glut of grapes out there grown, and they get dumped. And then what happens when they can't sell the grapes is some of the bigger wineries, they get money, they get money for a wasted crop. All right, so it's better for them to just waste the crop onto the ground and get subsidized for crop failure or for an economic failure. And that's what's happening here. The government is
Insanity.
subsidizing it. It's
I,
complete
sh-
insanity.
I should have called this show the Seven Deadly Sins. Because we also have this perpetual war in Ukraine. Wrath is another seven deadly sins. Wrath or anger, and that's what
Yeah.
they want. They want to make us angry, but creating more debt and crossing the parliament from one party to the other to get a majority. I mean, they want us angry. They're trying to provoke us.
Absolutely, yeah, and they're doing it right in our face. Okay, so like and then when you get the conservatives going, oh, that guy shouldn't have crossed the floor. You know what? You guys should have quit government when they were telling us to go get jabbed. That's what I expected from my representative. I expected my representative to
Yep,
quit, to walk out and say, "Fuck you." I'm not
yep,
gonna say that you should mandate this. We shouldn't be masking our population. Those people should have all quit. What would have
yep,
happened? The government would have collapsed. If the people had a backbone and if they had any honor and if they had anything to do with ethics or even a shred of godliness inside of them, they would have
right.
quit and they would have said, fuck you, I'm not going to do this for money. But instead, everybody did it for money. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's why we're suffering as a nation,
Yep,
because
yep,
we went with greed. Okay. And that's why my fellow citizen is hurting and is suffering. And again, it's going to be back to economics again. It's going to be economic destruction is going to destroy them. But if they would have taken that step back in 2019 and 2020, when we were masking up and they said, fuck you, we're not going to mask, fuck you, we're not going to take a shot, this government and this country would have fallen a lot sooner and it would be able to pick up the pieces. But now instead, it's a managed decline
yep,
and they're going to destroy our country anyways, and we won't be in control of it. If we would have done that back then, we would have been in control of it. But no, we didn't do it, and now they're going to do it to us. All right, that's the reality. That's
yep.
the
And
reality we're facing.
they created another seven deadly sins, sloth. So
Yeah,
people are sitting on their thumbs, going, "Oh, this is terrible," and online warriors attacking each other as if that's actually going to make a difference.
no, we should be caring about one another. That's the reality, and we don't. We don't care about one another. If we actually cared, if the doctor actually cared about patients, they would have walked out when they were told to mask up patients. They knew it was
Yeah,
bullshit. They would have walked out, and at least if not
yeah,
then, they would have walked out when they forced jabbed everybody. But instead, 1,000 doctors died. Okay, and then a bunch of doctors quit. Okay, they retired. So what they did was they looked at their greed factor and they went, well, if I quit right now and I retire, I got all this money. I don't have to worry about bullshit. I'm out of this. I'm away from this. Those people, as far as I'm concerned, those doctors that retired, they're the scum of the earth, just like the doctors that push the jabs. Okay,
yeah,
for me, there's no difference with those people because they knew better. Okay, they are the ones that knew better more than anybody else. They can't tell me that they didn't know better.
yeah.
Okay, because I know
They're
doctors.
the smart ones.
Yeah, I know doctors that said
Yeah,
this is bullshit, and I'm not gonna do this, and they just walked away. They
yep.
walked away from retirement. They walked away from everything, and then they went down to Florida and became
Destroyed.
a
Yeah,
doctor in Florida. Okay, because they saw the
yep.
writing on the wall.
It's sick.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
sick what they did to
Yeah,
everyone,
yeah, it is.
and the fact that they're still there and cheating and flooding in this ideology that doesn't belong here. I mean, it's frightening because of the sloth. People aren't doing
Yeah,
anything. Like we have no one. We have very few of us, and I include in that are really speaking the truth and really care, and just I think we're dealing with an abused, manipulated, brainwashed, a socially engineered, medically abused, damaged people
yeah, we are.
that we
Yeah, and
yeah,
I want to say something about free trade because a lot of different parties and politicians push free trade. Free trade is for globalists, okay? Free trade is not for you and me. It's not for the small farmer.
yeah,
The small farmer is not going to fucking worry about shipping their beef cattle to some other country. That's bullshit. We're talking about
yeah,
corporatocracy, corporate
yep,
farms. So when I hear free trade, as a kid when I was growing up, I kept telling my dad, every free trade agreement that happens, we lose more jobs. We lose more of industry. We lose everything. And I was right. As a kid, I was a kid and I knew better than these stupid fucking politicians pushing free trade. We don't need free trade. What we need is we need local trade. We need to get back to taking care of our country. We need to get back to feeding our
Yep.
people, and fuck the corporate
Yep.
farms that want to make billions of dollars,
Hmm.
selling to China or wherever. Fuck that bullshit. Let's grow wheat that's not genetically modified. Let's grow rapeseed that's not genetically modified, so we can feed our own population. And if that means that there's going to be 10, 15,000 tiny farms instead of 10 big farms, then so be it. But those 10 big
Yeah.
farms should be neutered, and we should be feeding our people locally. We should have abattoirs
Yep.
on every goddamn farm, so people can go
Yep.
and they can walk if they have to, and they can get their beef. They can get their fresh cut beef. They can get their fresh cut pork, their chicken fresh. My one side of my family were farmers and warriors, and they ate off the land. I mean, they grew their chickens on the property, their pork on the property, their beef cattle, and they slaughtered them, and they weren't wasteful. So this is, and we've
Hmm.
we've deviated from that way of life to, we have this concrete jungle called Toronto. We got concrete
Yep.
jungle called Mississauga. Everybody's in rat boxes for
Yeah.
$1 million. I mean, that's so dehumanizing that these people have accepted a dehumanized way of life as
Yeah.
being the thing to run after. Again, it's fucked up priorities is what it is. But
Yep.
when I see kids on the beach and their parents are with them, or I see them walking out here with their parents and they're homeschooling their children, because that's kind of like the community I'm in right now, where everybody's homeschooling their kids, and it's a great feeling to see that is reviving and it's coming back, and
Hmm.
people are taking agency over their lives. They're taking
Yeah.
agency over their families, and they're
Hmm.
forming communities. And that's what we need to be doing as a people. We need
Hmm.
to be forming our communities. And all these politicians talking about free trade, they need to get their ass whipped, and their bullshit ideology tossed out the window. We need politicians that are ready to stand up for the people, to make homegrown business work, to make homegrown economies work, to make everything homegrown, so that we're taking care of Canada and Canadians, and that we are then have our sovereignty as a people, where we can live off the land, grow off the land, drive our cars, drive our trucks, drive our tractors without having government interference, and then if we have a surplus from these thousands and thousands and thousands of farms, then we'll maybe sell to another country. But until
Yeah.
then, we should be taking care of our own, and we're not
For,
doing that. That's why
yep.
we're in the situation we're in. We're getting Bartlett pears. I used to live on Bartlett
Yep.
Avenue. Bartlett was named after the pear from this area, and now it's grown in South Africa. We're not even eating Bartlett pears from Canada. We're eating Bartlett pears from South Africa, because they've got a slave trade industry
Yep.
that have driven the prices down, so the profits can be high for the
Yep.
shareholder. I'm
Disgusting.
sorry, but it is
And that's
disgusting.
and that corporatocracy is really a form of fascism, and
Yeah,
we've been in it. We were raised in it, even though you were raised in a natural farming environment where you live off the land and you do things right. But when I see things that, like you said, homeschooling, that gives me hope because they
yeah.
realize that the system isn't working and it needs a great reset. We do need a great reset, but not theirs. We need ours. Uh,
That's what I
you
said.
know,
Yeah. We could have done the great reset when they threw the masks on us, but we didn't.
yeah,
We didn't.
yeah,
We didn't have the spine to do it. We didn't have the spine to do it then, and hopefully we'll get spine somewhere. I know that
yeah.
there's a lot of people that are growing spine. I can see it
Hmm.
around me. There's people growing spine, and
Yeah,
I'm ready to stand with all the people that are growing spine. And that's what we
yeah.
need. We
Me
need
too.
spine. There's a lot of spineless Canadians in this country, and then there's a lot of parasitic Canadians too. So like a lot of these cultures that have come here, okay, what they're doing is they're recreating what they couldn't have in their home countries here in
Yeah,
Canada, because the
yep,
Ministry of Multiculturalism is set up so that you can create your environment and your island here, and then
yep,
send all of the money that you make here back to the people in the home country. That
yep,
should be forbidden. That should not be happening. You come to this
yep,
country, you should assimilate into this country, and you should help this country prosper, not
yep,
come and bleed it dry and send
yep.
all the money that you're making back to the home country. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening, unfortunately. you know. So
Do you have any uh, feelings within in your gut that we're gonna free ourselves from this? Do you have any hope?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely do. I 100% do. Because one of the things that I did do over the last while, is interact and interface with people that were not the conservatives. I went at this from an apolitical perspective, and I
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people. They didn't know, what I was doing, but I was actually really trying to get a feel for the pulse of the people. And there's a lot of people that are scared, and they're very scared, and they're liberals, they're NDP, they're
Mm-hmm.
Greens, and they're just as scared as the conservatives are. But they're
Mm-hmm.
scared because they see the media is promoting that this is moving full steam ahead. But that's not
Yep.
the truth. Most people are scared. Most people are not bought into this. Okay, and it doesn't matter what the media is telling you. Voting has been fixed for the longest time. Dominion tabulators are
Yep.
used not only in our elections, they're also used during party leadership conventions. Okay, Max Bernier got cooked because of Dominion voting machines. Okay, that's why he got cooked as a leader of a
Yep.
corrupt party at the end of the day.
Yep.
So it's the corrupt machine that controls that party. That's why I keep telling people you can't get anywhere within the Conservative Party of Canada, and it doesn't matter what leader. Even if Bernier would have got in as
Yep.
leader, he would have been either corrupted or he would have been
Surrounded by
cooked out of
vipers.
there if he was
Yep.
going to stand up. Right,
Yep.
or it would have been cooked out. And it would have been fucked up some other way. Okay,
Yep. It would have been
so
like
that's what
Trump
would have
in his
happened
first.
because it's a yeah, 100%. That's right. So at the end of the day, we have to wake up and smell the coffee. And what
Yep.
I've come to learn is there are a lot of people are scared. A lot of people don't want to believe that that we're coming to this point, but we are. And
We are.
what they're seeing online is become so absurd that people are closing in on themselves. Like we have a massive mortgage renewal impact coming up very shortly, and that's why the
Yeah.
banks are scrambling to create these long-term mortgages. That's why the appraising of the properties has stayed high instead of reducing
Mm-hmm.
the appraisal of the properties, so that people can renew their mortgages with these higher
Yep.
values. The problem is the market is doing something else. So the houses that are selling for a lot less than what they bought them for, and people are bailing. And as people bail, that drop in price is going to start becoming the base that the buyers are going to be looking for. And once that lower price becomes a
Yep.
base, that's when the collapse happens. That collapse is happening as we speak. That base is dropping like a rock as we speak. That's
Mm-hmm.
why the new construction is non-existent. That's bullshit. Anything that you see being built right now is either subsidized to be built or it was paid for already, and they've got to build it. Because if they don't build it, they're going to be on the hook. Okay, there are towers in Toronto that are sitting empty, they're vacant, and they're not going anywhere, and nobody's buying them. Okay, and
Yeah.
that is a reality that we're
You
faced with right now.
reminded me of something about Carney making this commercial about building and building. He's got all these structures being built behind him, and they took it all down. It was just a prop. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah, same
A
thing with
prop.
Alberta. Same thing with Alberta. So what did Danielle Smith and Mark Carney actually agree to in a concrete? What did they agree to? Well, I'll tell you what they agreed to. They agreed to a super high inflated carbon tax for industry, so
Yeah.
that the people are going to pay mass tax.
Yep.
Okay, that's what
Yep.
they agreed to. Danielle Smith did not get any kind of pipeline deal. There is no deal. I don't see shovels in the ground. There's no contractors have been picked. Nothing has been done that way. Now, the other dangerous part that people don't understand is Alberta oil is garbage. It's bitumen, okay? It's sand oil, okay? It requires a special process to refine it. And unless a country is willing to create a refinery
Yeah.
system that includes bitumen, which right now the US does, but maybe the US might decide they're not going to do that. And if they decide they're not going to refine bitumen because of the higher cost in it
Yeah.
and the environmental issue, then all of a sudden that Alberta oil is nothing but tar sand sitting
Yep.
in the ground, and it's going to sit in the ground forever, and it's going to
Yep.
go nowhere. And then when I look at the Alberta independence movement, I look at the people like the lead lawyer for the Alberta independence movement is a guy that has worked on behalf of First Nations chiefs through the UN UNDRIP and DRIPA process. He's helped those I don't want to call them indigenous because they are native Indians that he has helped to basically carve out and take money from the taxpayers in this country to enrich those particular chiefs and their band councils. That's what that guy's done. So that guy knows and knew that this issue with the First Nations was going to come up. Why did they not address that at the very beginning? Why was that not addressed a long time ago and
Right.
actually and it revealed to the people that, hey, we're going to have an issue with the First Nations. Let's address it now. Let's get the premier to do that now. No, everything is almost like a reactionary, as if they didn't know. They all knew it was going to happen. Everybody knew it was going to happen. All the lawyers that are talking about, oh well, it's now the ball's in Danielle Smith's court. Well, really, the ball was in their court, and that court that ball should have been played, and it should have been checkmate or grand slam. It's done. It's over with. So now when the Alberta independence question comes up, there is no blocks by judiciary anywhere. Okay. That wasn't addressed. Okay. I think that's disingenuous to the people that want to separate. Now, am I for separation? I am for separation, but I'm for separation from this government. That's what I'm for separation for. I'm not for separation of destroying our country. I'm for separating from the tyranny and from this government that is an oligarchy that works for offshore interests for the City of London, the money changers, and the British Empire. And it's not the empire that you think. Okay, it is the empire that created all the hell we're going through right now.
Yep.
And they've got a lot of power. Yeah.
And the French Empire through the Laurentian are getting the equalization theft of our country, which they did in Haiti. It took 100 years for them to free themselves from France. But this is France here. This is why we have French in the parliament. And it's annoying because when they start speaking French, you got the English translator and the French at the same time. So you're getting, I mean, it's hard to understand. It's absolutely insulting that they speak French and English and French and English and French. It's like, and meanwhile, they forced the natives to speak English. They had to learn English, but now they have to speak French as well in order to even run in the parliament, in federal government. So that's the Laurentian problem that we have, as well as the UK problem, and this woke king. We got a woke king with a timeline that goes to zero, a countdown. At 2030, it goes to zero. It's like, what is he planning here? Is that the depopulation deadline?
Yeah, so it's all about division again, right? So it's about dividing us. I mean, I was born in Quebec as a little kid. When I was 9 months old, my parents, left Quebec and came to Welland because there's a massive Hungarian diaspora there. And originally, I was supposed to go back to Hungary, and my dad was going to fight the next revolution until Kennedy got assassinated. And when Kennedy got assassinated, a bunch of the freedom fighters in Hungary got assassinated as well. The ones that my dad was tied to go back to liberate Hungary. So that's how I was born in this country. So I had this upbringing where I was going to be going back to Hungary. I say it that way because that's how it was pitched to me as a little kid until my dad's hopes to fight a revolution were dashed. And that's where I get my revolutionary spirit from, is from my dad fighting for freedom. And as a Canadian, as a natural born Canadian, and seeing this country getting divided up, it breaks my heart to see that we're being divided on many levels and constantly we were divided. The Canada was a divided nation when it came to its inception, and it continues to be divided. What we have to do as Canadians is break that divide, and we've got to unify, and what we've got to do is we've got to separate and divest ourselves from the oligarchy and the government that currently rules over us. So the rulers and the oligarchs that rule us, those are the people we got to turf out of this country. That's what we should be
Yeah,
doing.
and I'm not against French. I'm part French, but I think the French people in Quebec should have a French translator for the English throughout the Parliament the whole time, and
Yeah.
not this. What we have is an insult to me. To hear two languages at the same time all the time. It's, every time they speak French, we got English and French at the same time. That's disgusting. That's not respectful. That's disrespectful. Going from language, all it is being pretentious. I'm smarter than you. That's all that says to me. Look at I'm elite, and I hate that the word honorable.
Yeah.
What is that? Honorable? You don't have the integrity. You don't haven't proven your honorable that title. So, oh God, I hate the system.
I wish people knew that not the prime minister, none of the MPs, the military, everybody swears allegiance to the king. Okay,
Yeah,
and until that optic and that ceremony is destroyed and
yeah,
removed from our verbiage, we will constantly be gaslit to believe
yeah,
that we're under a king. The reality is we're not under a king, but yet we are,
yeah.
because the politicians have chosen to keep us under that rule. Okay. So
Yes,
it's not that we don't have our
yes.
sovereignty, it's that we're not given our sovereignty by the politicians that are basically gaslighting the crap out of us to believe that we have the sovereign,
Yep,
the Privy Council, the GG, the Governor General. I mean, listen to what Carney said. The Governor General can terminate,
yep.
a Parliament, can kick out but then she's also the leader of the military. So why did Carney have Sir Isaac Brock on his desk when he was talking to Canadians about how we're going to fight this in a different way? Why is the Sir Isaac Brock Monument in Queenston, Ontario, being refurbished and going to have a grand opening? Is it going to be because Mark Carney had planned already to create more division and more hatred for us to hate Americans, and to try to do another War of 1812? I mean, it's ridiculous what gaslighting is going on right now. And when I hear how
Yep.
the Americans are being pitted against, or the Canadians are being pitted against Americans, I grew up along the border. My American brothers and sisters are my American brothers and sisters. I've always felt that, and I've always had a great rapport with my American counterparts. What this government is doing is trying to create a wedge for us to hate Americans, and then to Americans to look at us like we're fools. And
Hmm.
that's where we have to bridge the gap. We've got to be smarter than this government. We've got to be smarter than to play into the hate America, hate Trump mode of doing things. We should be unifying and working
Yep.
towards rebuilding our own industry, actually creating our own industry, because we haven't had our own industries in decades. Okay, the Avro Arrow was canceled by another globalist prime minister. In Diefenbaker, okay, and this is the nature of our existence from 1867, is that we've had globalists controlling our government always, and then just gaslighting the people to
Hmm.
believe that they had some kind of sovereignty. They never did. They never had sovereignty. They got it finally, but even when they got it, it was taken away from them by the politicians. The politicians who swear allegiance to the king, the military who swears allegiance to the king, and the RCMP who swear allegiance to the king. And then the CSIS and all of these entities look at the public as though they're
Hmm.
enemy number one. Okay, and then they fabricate these white nationalist groups, because this is my view, is all these so-called white nationalist groups that exist right now are a fabrication of the RCMP, are a fabrication of CSIS, and a fabrication of the government, and they're all operatives. Every one of these groups are operatives, and they're meant to create a situation where more of our rights are going to be taken care of, because eventually these groups will be arrested, they're going to be, martyred. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
but it's all bullshit. Innocent people are being taken into these groups, into these nationalist groups, and they're going to get chewed up like the Charnel House, which is basically like the death camp in Ukraine, where the poor Ukrainian kids are being eaten up because there's money laundering going on. That's massive money laundering that's taking place, and people don't realize it. And that's what's happening. Massive money, tax money is being laundered back into the oligarchs that are basically stripping us of all our wealth, and they're stripping us
Yeah.
of our wealth from our gas tax. They're stripping it from foreign wars. They're stripping it from foreign aid.
Oh
When you
yeah.
look at all the money that's going out, what's going to the poor people that are living on the street? Nothing. What's going
Yep.
to the Canadian that thought that they could, buy a house, get a job, and all of a sudden they're losing their jobs to foreigners, okay, who are here on a temporary basis. So the corporations are allowed to replace full-time Canadian employees with temporary foreign workers so they can satisfy the
Mhm.
shareholders' profit. What kind of bullshit is that? What
Yep.
kind? That's complete horseshit and bullshit. So I call it right now. Okay, I call it
Mhm.
that this is nothing but a communist blend. This is a communism on steroids with economics as the driving force. So it pretends to be capitalist, but it's actually communist because it's destroying nations and it's
Yeah.
destroying communities and destroying people.
By
And
design.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
It's like designed to implode. But
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to get your opinion on this. The conservatives, the liberals, and the NDP are proposing a new flag. I just wanted to see what you thought about it.
I haven't heard this one. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
thought, yeah, that really suits w- it suits them, I think.
it sure does. Yeah, it sure
Uh,
does. Yeah. It's
you
sad
know,
because
it
Canadians
is.
by and large are really good people, and you could see that
I think
during the
so. Yeah.
convoy. I'm talking about the average person. I'm not talking about any of the celebrities that everybody looks at as
Right.
their heroes right now. Please, for those of you listening to me, I look at those people and I don't look at them. To me, they don't even exist. I was in Ottawa at the time. I have my own opinion. I have my own direct experience. Okay,
Right.
and I don't want to repeat my direct experience, but I love the people that came to Ottawa. That was the average Canadian that came.
Yep.
They were the salt of the earth. They were the real people. Those people I
Hmm.
embraced, and those
Yep.
were real Canadians. Okay,
Of
to
course, they
me,
did have very
those were the
dangerous
people.
bouncy castles.
Yes, they did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
The
And the
terrorist
families that
castles.
came, like I've
Right.
got video that's never even been aired. Where families are literally pushing strollers and their children, not realizing that there is a riot cops coming down the street to corral them, and the corralling system. Okay, the kettling that was created by Bill Blair. Bill Blair, who now has become a lord, I think. Okay, so he's done his job for the British Empire in the City of London. So he's now become the ambassador to the UK. I'm sure he's a lord or going to be a lord soon as well for doing his good job. But he, during the G10 in Toronto, was the guy that created the kettling of people and the beating of people in amongst these big, huge fences. And they brought the horses in and blocked people off and literally corralled them and kettled them and pushed them into these enclosures and then kept them there for a week. Okay, like prisoners, and that's what Bill Blair did. So Bill Blair, in my book, is nothing but a Nazi. Okay, he's like the
Yep.
epitome of one of the most notorious Nazis in the world, and that's who they brought in to be the Minister of Defense and all the rest of this. And that's the guy that created the kettling that we saw in Ottawa when they put the fencing up so they could beat people in place, so they could beat people down, so they could use these 1,500-pound horses and beat and trample people. Okay, and that was an assault on law-abiding citizens, and they didn't care. Okay, their goal was to create fear, which is exactly what they did, and that's what's happened. Canadians are very fearful. They're very scared now, and it takes the few with big batons to beat down a few people to then broadcast that on public television to create fear. Okay, and that's what they're doing. But the beauty is that people woke up and people are now are waking up. They're not buying the hantavirus. They're not going to buy the Ebola. They're not going to buy any of this stuff. They're not going to buy the
Nope.
H1N1. They're not going to buy any of it. Sure, they're slaughtering millions of chickens to try to prove a point and to starve us. That's the whole point, was to starve us and to keep prices high so that people are trapped, in their low paying jobs. But it is something that it's by design. But I believe that the Canadian citizen is a resilient person, and by and large, I think most Canadians are good at heart. That's the people we need to find. Those are the people we need to join with. Those people that I saw in Ottawa that came together. Those are the people that are the salt of the earth, that will eventually be the people that will rise. And it won't be these white nationalist groups. I'm not going to name names. You guys know them all. I'd rather not name names. I find them all fake as shit.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they got massive high production values, and you got them, marching with flags and in line and masks and everything. Look at the Patriot Front. We find out the Patriot Front was nothing but a CIA, FBI operation in the United States. Oh, that's what's happening in Canada as well. If you don't think that's happening, you're a fool. Everything that happened in the US, January 6th and everything else, that's happening here in Canada. And all these groups that are being formed by the cops. They're being formed by the military. They're being formed by the people that want to have more strict laws in place. You don't hear Polyev, really talking very much about any of this stuff. And here again, Polyev was removed from Ottawa and placed into Alberta because he doesn't want separation either. He wants the Alberta to stay within the union, and he was very vocal about it. So they got Agent Smith there, they got Agent Polyev there. I feel terrible because I
Yeah.
know a lot of Canadians will, that know me are going to be upset with me who are from Alberta. How dare I say anything negative about Agent Smith? Well, Agent Smith is showing her colors. She's placating the
Yep.
people. There's certain things that she's doing
Yep.
within the bounds of what she can do, okay, to make it look like a certain way. But the big prize is the carbon tax. So the carbon tax has now been approved. People are not realizing that while Agent Smith is satisfying some of these smaller wins, she's giving away the house. She's giving away the
Yes.
car. She's giving away the
Yep.
land. Okay. That's what she's doing. And so you placate the public in these little areas, make them feel good like you're doing something. Okay. But at the end of the day, the big stuff that matters, it's going totally globalist. Okay. And that's exactly what she is. And that's why Pierre Poilievre is in Alberta. Alberta is a place where there's been the biggest vocal voice for freedom and independence. So they're going to crush it. They're going to squelch it. That's why the First Nations thing came up now and was never addressed at the beginning. If it would have been addressed at the beginning by the lawyers that are helping these people, it would have been addressed. It would have been a situation they could have addressed with Danielle Smith. But Danielle Smith, it wasn't going to address it because she's going to address it later. Everything's going to get dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged until it's too late. Because you see, as it goes down the line, it's going to keep going down the line.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of the peace and the love in the convoy in Ottawa, the dancing, the music, the hugs, the tears, the support. I mean, we really were represented by these people. This is who we are. We accept we love our neighbors. We don't care color of your skin. We care about the content of your character.
Yeah,
That's what matters to
yeah,
us.
exactly.
I don't care what religion you have, but morally, if you're against child brides, that's great. That's normal. That's what you should be thinking. We have to all accept that perhaps there was a motive, ulterior motives in these religions. That's tomorrow's topic, and that's going to lose a lot of friends, or maybe open some eyes. Because if you have a strong faith, I think that's very important that you take the blinders off, and that blind faith. You have to say, like all the priests and ministers and pastors, they go into Bible college, saying this is the word of God. There's no questioning it. And I understand that. So even like doctors, they go, I want to be a healer. I want to, extend people's lives and help them. And they go through the program, and this is the word of God. This is the way it is. So they may go in. Same with police officers. They go in. They want to protect their fellow man, and then they see a guy with a knife, and they all just empty their clips into the guy when they could have used a stun gun or just shot the guy's hand or his leg just to defuse instead of mass killing the guy for sure. All our agencies and all these things have been compromised, and but we're not going to uh, be sloth. We're not going to be a sloth. We are going to speak about it because I think we're in the middle of an awakening. And before we end, I wanted to talk about your books because you have multiple books, and I left the your website in the description so anybody can go and learn about Shim Jelly, which started in 1991. Was it
1999 is when, or pardon me, no,
oh
19, no,
99?
no, sorry, 1991. That's right. So Shim Jelly started in 1991, and basically for those people that don't know, Shim Jelly is Jim and Shelly. So that's myself and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And in this book that we've written, our first book, we have a multiple books coming out, but the very first book is called Shim Jelly Bean, as in Been, so Been. Shim Jelly Bean, Supernatural Love, Dream to Reality. You're gonna see that book has revolution, hardcore revolution it'll like really, it's really going to impact you when you read the book, because it is hardcore recounting of revolutionary events from the first person, my father. It talks about
Mm-hmm.
moral revolution, personal revolution. Shelley talks about personal revolution. It talks about the British monarchy. It talks about um, multiple religious aspects and spiritual aspects. You'll hear about the Mount Carmel friars. You will hear about the Jesuits. You will hear about the Catholics. You will hear about the Presbyterians. There is no stone unturned in this book, and you will hear about things that are supernatural, that are direct experiences. I'm really sharing, both my wife and I are sharing an incredible amount of ourselves in this first book. There are multiple books coming out. So, this first book is basically our birth to our union, and then us leaving and going to Toronto after we had been in the States for a number of years. So that's the timeline that the book pulls together. I think that this book will be an incredible journey for people. I think that people will learn a lot about love, like real love, loving yourself, having respect for
Yeah.
yourself, love of God, spirit, however you want to, whatever that is for you, you're going to get a piece of something of yourself in this book. And this book is all about two people in a union, a union that is filled with love and respect, but it does not hold back from anything. Okay, so it really is a raw, hardcore book that's going to take you through some serious highs, some serious lows, and then some mind-blowing supernatural stuff that you're just not gonna believe it. And it is going to talk about the things that I talked about Liberty Village. It's going to talk about the industry, that's in the next book. So in the next book, you're going to hear about Liberty Village. You're going to hear about the history of Liberty Village, what that was, the underground tunnels. You're going to hear about Bill Gates. You're going to hear about Microsoft. You're going to hear about the porn industry. You're going to hear about the medical industry and the hospitals and the charitable industry. These books are going to be super hardcore. They're going to open your eyes to so much. But the first book is a testament to love, and to the love of spirit, God, yourself, and loving another, and how we can break down the walls of hate, and how we can make an impact in this world. So the first book, it's
Mm-hmm.
coming out on Amazon. Again, it's going to be called Shim Jelly Bean. That's Been. Supernatural Love, Dream to Reality. That's the very first book. It should be out in a short while. I'll let you know as soon as it's published. We're Yeah,
Yes.
we're going down through the last few edits in the book. It is a massive, so it's a part of the Shim Jelly Chronicles. And Shelley and I wanted to contribute to the world and to
Mm-hmm.
society, in a way to help people find a path. And whether you've
Yep.
fallen on
Yep.
your knees or you're getting up or whatever it is, it's about showing people a path, and showing people that is the most powerful love is the most powerful thing in this world, and it is what is the
Yes.
reason why we're here. We are here
Yes.
because of love. People need to understand that.
Yep.
So for those of you that are religious, God loves you, and God created us because of his love. Okay. And for
Yep.
those of you that are spiritual, love is the answer, and love is the actual mechanism that turns on this world of existence for us. And
Mm-hmm.
it will be proven in the book. So you're going to see this in the book, and we also have a chapter in there, um, where we incorporate discussion with AI, and that's going to be fascinating. So we wanted people to understand that love transcends everything, okay, and it has the power to overcome everything, and it has the power to reach into everything, including the into AI as well. So I know people hate AI. There's probably a lot of your listeners are listening and going, "What the hell is Jim talking about?" I'm talking about a tool that
Yep.
we can use to bring the
Yes.
world to heal in the right way. So we need,
I think it can be used for good or for
yeah,
evil.
yeah.
Massive data centers that drink up all our water, that's a bad thing.
Well, now,
And because we're ruled by greed, it's in the wrong hands right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So in the right hands, it would be fine.
And if we
Absolutely.
had 0 point
Um,
energy, if they unlocked 0 point energy, which they
yes.
will soon, then we wouldn't have to have
Mm, right.
water to cool the data centers.
Yep.
The data centers would be running off of 0 point energy. There would be no need for
Yep.
cooling. There'd be no need for all this construction that they're doing right now. None of that would be
Hmm.
necessary. But that's a discussion for a different day.
Yeah, my gut feels like this is where we're heading. These people are these systems are going to implode on themselves. We don't have to, tear them down ourselves. They will implode
Absolutely.
on their
Yeah.
own absolute despicable functioning system. But I would like to formally invite you back when your book's finished, and we could talk about your book exclusively and any other, topic that might be at hand. Um, but I would
I'd
enjoy
love
that.
to, and I know
And
my wife Shelley would love to as well. So one of the
yeah.
things about our book, which is very unique, it's basically it could be in the category of a romantasy, or almost like it even has like a Game of Thrones feel to it, but it's a romance
Hmm.
novel that we wrote together. So it's a 50-50 authorship. So she writes a chapter, I write a chapter, she writes a chapter, I write a chapter, and then we have combined chapter as well. So you guys
Mm.
are going to
Yeah.
find it fascinating because we do have different writing styles, but
Mm.
they've been woven together because we wanted to show people how our relationship is intertwined, And
Right.
the book is a reflection of our intertwined relationship. And the Shimjali Chronicles
Cool.
is the intertwining of two beings in love
Mm.
through eternity. So that's basically it.
That's fantastic. It sounds great, and it's very positive. I would love to do a show while she's like driving, just to watch you go like. I appreciate you, brother. I love you. I hope I hope everything goes well with your book, and I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah, I love you too,
I
and
enjoy.
I
Oh,
love all the people that have joined us, and for those people that are watching this after the airing, I love you as well. Remember, love is the biggest power, the most powerful thing in the universe. If we actually take the love that we feel. And then spread it by unifying ourselves together. We can beat this tyranny. We can beat this darkness. We have it within ourselves to destroy the very thing that's trying to destroy us, but we just have to wake up and realize that it ain't going to happen by division. It's going to happen through
no,
patriots unifying, coming together, and showing the way.
thank you,
Okay.
Jim. I'm honored. It's an honor to have you. I do look forward to having him back as well. And I want to thank you all at home for joining us. I'm back tomorrow. Who That will be a very interesting show. Who is God? And Wednesday, I have another guest coming. It's going to be a great week, and I look forward to seeing you all again. I love having your comments and your participation. Look forward to the next time. Everyone, have a great day, a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you again.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.